Jellyfish are among the oldest multi-organ animals on Earth. But despite their relatively simple body plan, they still manage to do some really complex things like hunt, prey, and even form symbiotic relationships with other animals. And they do all this without a brain. All of the neurons in a jellyfish's body are distributed throughout its tissues, and they can sense when those cells have been triggered and coordinate a response to it. That means they need to be able to communicate, which seems to happen through electrical signals. Neurons in jellyfish are connected by gap junctions, which are like little tunnels that pass electrical charges directly from one cell to another. The ocellus will send out a signal that triggers the jellyfish to contract on one side and relax on the other, where it takes about a second to go from the rhopalia to the bell. So if the jellyfish needs to make a sharp turn, it sends out a new set of signals, while the old ones are still being carried out. The result is a smooth, continuous motion. This makes the jellyfish turn right. If the jellyfish swims towards a good light source, the left side will contract and the right side will relax, causing the jellyfish to turn left. And they read just one example of an animal that's been able to achieve complex behaviors without a centralized nervous system. And they're definitely not the simplest animals out there. Check out this video to learn about animals that don't even have nerves. Eventually, the jellyfish will orient itself correctly with respect to the light. These networks of interconnected neurons are called a syncytium, and it still manages to move around in a coordinated way. But even this seemingly random motion isn't really random. It turns out that jellyfish are constantly sending out new signals, telling their bodies to move in different directions. The way a jellyfish moves overall is actually the sum of all of the signals it's received up until that point. So even though a jellyfish doesn't have a central brain, it can still respond appropriately to its environment, all thanks to its network of neurons and its trusty little sense organs. So how do they do it? Jellyfish are made of nothing but cells. There are no tissues or organs, just a bunch of similar cells grouped together into one big blob. This blob is surrounded by a couple layers of contractile cells that can squeeze the blob into different shapes, kind of like a blob with muscles. And these shape changes are what allow jellyfish to swim. The other part is an ocellus, which contains light-sensing cells that help the jellyfish move towards the best source of light. If a jellyfish ends up swimming away from its preferred light levels, the cells in its rhopalia will send out electrical signals that travel all the way to the end of the jellyfish, where they trigger a change in the shape of the bell. Jellyfish also have stinging cells, which they use both for hunting and for defense. And although they don't have brains, some jellyfish do have things called rhopalia, which are clusters of neurons that are specialized to do something specific. Rhopalia act as simple sense organs, each one containing a type of receptor for sensing things like touch, gravity, and light. One of the most important functions of these sense organs is to keep the jellyfish oriented with its front end facing forward so it can swim in a coordinated way. Each rhopalium has two main parts. One part is a staticist, which senses gravity and keeps the jellyfish upright. If the jellyfish has been swimming away from its preferred light level and moves away from a good light source, now, because a jellyfish's uncoordinated neurons are spread out all over its body, there's a slight delay between when the signal first starts and when it reaches the end of the jellyfish. And if you've ever seen a jellyfish move in person, you might have noticed that they often seem to move erratically, going in lots of different directions all at once. Jellyfish are pretty complex creatures, despite not having any brains. Thanks for watching.